Hello. So, gonna continue this Seduce Me game, which is Seduce Me to the Demon War. This is Diana's round, but hi, how are you?
Hold on there! Before you start the game,
And let me know
I
how
need
the
to
volume
ask
is now
you
for,
a few
for this
things. Don't want you
version.
getting lost
Is it
now.
too low?
First of all, have you read the first story, Seduce Me the Otome? Like, seriously read it. No skimming, no pretending to read it. No.
Yeah, I've always loved
It's
purple.
okay if you haven't, but there are a lot of things in this game that you won't understand unless you fully experienced and understood that
Right.
story first. First of all, have you...
Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Next question. You do know this is Diana's route, right?
Right?
The succubus princess that tried to bring the boys back to the demon world?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know.
Awesome. All right then. Diana's a very interesting character, huh?
She is. I love her. And I love the voice of Diana, who is Michaela Lies.
Anyway, I have one last question for you. Some people like hearing the trigger warnings before they start games, while others don't really care and just want to play. It's cool either way, but do you want to know about some of the content listed in the game? No problem. It's my pleasure. Well, this game is recommended
I'm
for
doing
players
this with
ages 18 and up. Trigger warnings include
my viewers.
suicide, war, torture, mentions of rape, and a large amount of violence and sexual content.
Okay.
Don't worry though, any sex scene choice you encounter is completely up to you. You can play this game without needing to go through the sex scenes and still
Okay.
get the good endings. Consent is important. I think that should be everything. All right. Phew, that took a while.
Hey,
You
Diana.
forgot something.
Huh?
Oh, yeah?
What did I forget?
You forgot about the disclaimer.
Oh, crap! Oh, how could I have forgotten about that?
It's fine, I'll take care of it. This game was produced by Michaela Laws using the Ren'Py visual novel engine. We truly hope you enjoy this story.
Thanks, Diana. Now, don't you have a war to go fight?
Yeah.
I do. I just wanted to make sure everything was in order before the story began. I'll take my leave now.
Thanks, Di.
Do not call me Di!
Love you, Diana.
Anyway, we really do hope you like the story. Have fun! See you at the end.
See you, Kay. Of course, put my name. I was in love with a succubus. It was true. I had fallen for the charms of a succubus, and I was about to dive headfirst into the demon world with her to save her kingdom.
Do you have any regrets?
None. I smiled as Diana held me in her arms and carried us both through the night sky. We had shared a sweet kiss, the first of hopefully many in the future, and were about to cast a spell to enter the demon world. Diana looked to the ground that was far below us and pointed her free hand down towards it, closing her eyes.
Revetara tenebras, dirato locum, pater portas.
At the last word left her mouth, a large purple pentagram appeared in the grass below, before twisting and becoming a black void. I gripped onto Diana, scared at what I was seeing.
Last chance.
I gulped at the sight, not sure what to make of this. Was this really what I wanted to do? My curiosity, however, guided my decision and forced me to take a deep breath. I closed my eyes and let calm wash over me before looking up at Diana. Let's go. Diana smiled and wrapped both arms around me, laying a protective hand over my head.
Hang on.
All right. I tightened my grip on Diana, obeying her command as I held tight. I felt air quickly begin to rush past our bodies as Diana tilted back and began to let us fall towards the ground. Was she insane? I looked at Diana, seeing her smirk at me before closing her eyes. I did the same, naturally preparing for an impact with the ground. What I felt was a cool rush of energy rushing over my skin, as if it had fallen into water. I slowly opened my eyes and found myself staring into a vast dark space, holding onto a woman who was no longer wearing clothes. I was clinging to a woman who had no clothing, but instead had purple marks across her skin and horns adorning, I don't know if I pronounced that right, her head. However, I can tell that this woman was still Diana just by looking into her eyes. Diana smiled at me and kissed my forehead before tightening her hold on me and muttering softly.
Adlilith Castra.
I held onto her body. I felt us begin to move through the space as if a giant fan had pushed us forward. Onward we continued through the darkness with me unsure of where we were going. I can't read. And Diana guiding the way. We began to slow, and soon a small light appeared, slowly growing. As we got closer to it, I had to shut my eyes as it began to consume us. I felt weightless. I couldn't feel anything except the woman in my arms, and I felt somehow exquisite. I want to drown in this feeling and become lost in it. However, our journey through the light was coming to an end. The light around us faded away, and soon I found myself lying on Diana as she lay on the stone floor. The air, however, smelt of fire and blood. Whoa! I looked up, seeing fires everywhere in sight. What the hell? This was the demon world?
Isager!
Hi, Seto. A loud shout forced me to look over and see a man running at me with a spear and a rage-filled expression. I screamed and rolled off of Diana's scooting away to avoid being skewered. As he continued towards me, I screamed.
No!
I looked up to see Diana kneeling in front of me and gripping the man's spear, pointing it away from her. The man stared wide-eyed at Diana as she glared back.
My lady, you live?
Of course I do. I told you I would return, and thus I have.
Okay. The man gave a small sigh of relief, lowering his weapon and propping it up to lean against it. As I examined now that he wasn't gunning for me, he was wounded and exhausted, panting heavily, and gripping his spear tightly.
I'm so glad.
As he finally toppled over, Diana gasped and rushed over, kneeling beside him.
Settle!
I rushed over as well, wanting to see what was going on. Who was he? Why did he attack me? Why was the room on fire?
Settle! What happened?
We were attacked by the demon lord. He took advantage of your absence.
Huh. I began to cough violently. We needed to get out of this room wherever we were. Diana, we need to get out of here. Diana nodded and grabbed my hand instead of chanting under her breath. The room around us began to shift as if it were changing instead of us moving. Soon we were outside a castle at it as flames erupted from each window. What was happening? Diana's face was of pure shock, staring at the castle in absolute terror. All of the color besides for the purple marks on her skin had faded to a pale white in horror.
We drove them back, but the flames are too powerful.
Yikes. At the moment, something in Diana's eyes changed. Her anger sparked, and she stood quickly walking around us and towards the castle. Diana!
Come! I command thee, white winds! Crush these fires beneath your hands!
Sorry. I stared at the wind, and the air quickly began to pick up, and a purple glow began to surround Diana's body. It was like a storm was rushing towards us, but there was no rain or thunder, just wind. The winds forced back the flames that danced in the windows, and smoke began to rise from each one, signaling the death of the fire. The windows continued to be filled with wind and air, most likely to kill the flames deep within the walls. I, however, could only stare at Diana. Her body was rigid, and her gaze was intently focused on the stone castle. Interesting. Soon the winds began to die out, and all that was left was smoke rising from the windows into the dark purple and black sky.
You did it. How?
How? Diana looked at Seto, intensity still embedded, I can't pronounce words. Her eyes.
Where are the king and queen?
I heard Seto's breath hitch, and I turned to look at him. He had a look of pure pain and guilt. What happened? Diana walked over and stared down at him, now almost glaring daggers at him, as she clenched her fists at her sides.
Speak, Seto!
The imp demons. While we were fighting the flames and the army, the imp demons snuck through our defenses.
Damn. My heart, despite not fully understanding the situation, began to tighten. Something was incredibly wrong. Seto shut his eyes as a pair of demons I assumed to be allies rushed over and began casting magic over his body, closing his wounds.
They snuck into their room.
Yikes. Diana suddenly turned and bolted towards the castle, causing me to jump. Diana! I began to sprint after her, following her inside the castle and trying to keep up with her. Her panicked breath kept me following her direction, despite her fast twists and turns through the ashy corridors.
No.
Oh, I could hear Diana sobbing, praying as she ran. I did my best to keep up, not wanting to lose her and not wanting her to be alone right now. We turned into a long hallway that had a pair of golden doors at the end. They were as if the flames had not disturbed the door, or perhaps the room behind it.
Please be alive. Please!
Wonder who? Diana bolted for the doors and began to pull them open, grunting at the weight. I stopped running, skidding forward from the abrupt stop. Whomever she wanted alive, I hoped I hoped that they were as well. As the doors finally opened, however, the foul stench of blood erupted from behind them, the scent filling my nostrils. Oh no! Ah! Diana flung the doors wide open and could only stare at the sight we both saw. Blood covered the floor, the walls, the ceiling. Oh man! Excuse me. The entire room was painted in gore, skin, bone, and massive amounts of blood. Only 3 things barely coated in red stood in the middle of the room on the ground. 2 broken crowns and a small tiara that was barely large enough to fit a newborn's head. Oh.
No.
Diana slowly walked into the room. Oh God, I got chills. Oh no. Diana slowly walked into the room, the blood on the ground painting her bare feet, and she fell to her knees in front of the items. Staring down at them, I couldn't bring myself to enter the room with her. I watched as she lifted them to her chest, curling her shoulders over herself and shaking almost violently.
Father. Mother.
Oh no!
Audibel.
Orabelle, like a little brother or sister she had? Oh no! Oh, I got chills. As she continued to grieve over the ornaments in her hands, a dark, almost deadly, and evil-looking aura surrounded her body. It began to flicker and grow like a dark flame that wanted to engulf the room she knelt in. As it reached an apex and began to violently flicker through the room around her, Diana arched back and screamed to the ceiling, her voice heavily laced with magic, pain, and rage.
I'll kill you!
Oh, Diana! Watching her body burn in the intense black and purple flame-like energy made my heart stop in fear. I had never seen her like this before, and I was scared as to where her anger would drive her next. I kept my distance, giving her space to mourn and grieve. She had lost 3 people very close to her, and she came back to her castle in flames. She needed space and time. I waited until she finished curling into herself and whimpered, horse, I can't pronounce that. Diana.
Let's just go.
Diana and I left the room with her, unable to turn around and look back. We walked through the ashy corridors of the castle, Diana silenced by the sight and by her own grief. My heart was heavy for her. Still, the demon lord who had done this was still a threat at large, and who knew when he would return. Diana led the way to a room which, as expected, was as burnt as it could be. However, Diana waved her hand through the air, casting some sort of silent spell. There's some part of the ash and soup in the room vanished, and the furniture and decor were prepared. We at last stepped in, with Diana slowly lying down on the bed, unable to carry on any further. Looking at Diana's face, her eyes were puffy and red, while her skin almost became void of any color beyond the taint of her demon marks. If she wasn't breathing, one would assume that she was dead. Diana stared at the ceiling, a world of emotion swimming in her eyes. Despite what had happened, at last she spoke.
I need to send you back.
Why? What? Now was not the time to think about me, and I knew it. Besides, I came here for a reason. I wasn't going to go back knowing that Diana needed support. I had no regrets in coming here, and I would help her through this. No, Diana.
It's too dangerous here.
I don't care, Diana. Right, I don't care, Diana. Diana sat up slowly and looked at me, a form of weak anger in her eyes. However, she knew that it was fruitless to argue with me. After all, she made a deal with me, and I could see the obligation to obey buried behind her anger. Diana closed her eyes and lowered her head.
The demon lord will most likely return.
And we'll be ready for him. I gently took Diana's hand and lifted her chin so that she had to look at me. The anger that was I can't pronounce her melted into sadness and broken hope as she stared back into my gaze. There were remnants of rogue tears adorning her face, and seeing her so scared made me frown. I knew that we would get through this. We needed to rest for now, we would deal with the issue this world brought after.
My lady?
Hey, Seto. Diana and I turned our heads to see Seto by the open door, and I stepped away from Diana, giving her space behind him. Multiple soldiers, servants, and other demons rushed down the hall, most likely to check for the other issues and possibly try to fix the damage on the castle.
Yes, Seto?
Who is this human?
For a brief moment, I could see a look of disdain in his eyes as he looked to me. However, it only lasted a second as he looked to Diana, waiting for her to reply to him.
Seto, this is my guest. She came back with me too.
Diana looked to me, trying to find the words in my eyes. What was I to her? My curiosity bubbled as I awaited the completion for her answer.
She came to aid me in this war.
But what of your fiancé? What of the other sons?
They are gone. They have disappeared into the human world, and I can no longer trace them. I have failed.
The guilt and grief in Diana's voice deepened, most likely reminding herself that she saw the result of failing moments ago. Seto Seto, however, stepped up to Diana and knelt in front of her, surprising me. What was he doing? He was a guard, first off. Why was he being bold enough to step to her?
You didn't fail, my lady. The Demon Lord attacked us despite giving us his word that he would wait for you to return. He broke his end of the agreement.
I know.
Staring at Diana and Seto, I can see that they had a very close and deep connection. Was Seto a friend, or was he something more? I could recognize the emotion within Seto's eyes as he looked up at Diana. He looked to be in love with her, or at least had some form of ultimate care for his lady. Seto gently took one of Diana's hands and placed his lips upon it. Instantly, I could almost see energy flow from his body into hers from the kiss alone. Was this how energy transfer worked when you weren't the giver or receiver? The color in Diana's skin returned, and she let out a sigh with her body relaxing at last. Seto, however, continued to keep his lips over her hand. Something in my gut irked me about him. Not that I was against Diana getting energy, but Seto seemed to be extremely cozy with her, and being that she was someone who I potentially wished to be closer with. This was now an obstacle I had to slowly break Diana away from. Diana and Seto both looked up at me, with Seto lifting his head from Diana's hand. At least it worked. Realizing what was going on, Diana looked to Seto and smiled nervously before pulling her hand away from him.
Thank you, Seto.
Seto, however, stared at me, most likely knowing why I did what I had done. Another flash of disgust flashed in his eyes before he looked to Diana and bowed his head.
I am forever here to serve.
Seto stood and stepped back, looking to his mistress and to me.
Do we plan to retaliate, my lady?
We will. I expect the Demon Lord will come for a second attack, not realizing that I have returned.
What can we do then? Diana looked at me, a small glimmer of fear in her eyes, but her resolve rekindled, and she let a serious, I can't pronounce that word, cover her expression.
I will meet him on the battlefield should he come again.
My lady, you've just returned.
That I have. But the Demon Lord will not care if he learns of my return. If anything, news of my return will spur him to attack sooner than later. I must be there and stop him.
Diana looked to Seto with a cold expression, making Seto stand up straight like the guard he was meant to be.
Tell everyone to mend their wounds and prepare for a second invasion tomorrow. I expect the Demon Lord will be ruthless enough to attack in the morning. Let everyone know as well that their princess has returned.
Okay. Seto nodded and turned to the door to do his job. Before he exited the room, however, Diana called out one last thing to him, which seemed to make him freeze.
And when you are done, Please retire to my room. I will rest here for the night with my guest.
As you wish, my lady.
Okay. Interesting. With that, Seto left and closed the door behind him. The way Seto answered Diana seemed forced, but I could understand why. After all, if he had feelings for her, I became an obstacle for him and I was with her. That didn't stop me, however, from wondering where I stood with Diana. She was going to stay here with me. This was my room. This is my room? Diana let out a sigh and moved in the bed to rest against the back wall of the bed.
Come, we must rest.
Okay, I nodded and walked over, lying beside her. However, instead of Diana laying down, she guided my head to rest on her lap. Oh, you're not going to sleep?
Demons don't sleep, dear. At least not in this world.
Why not?
Because if we shut our eyes for too long, then we open ourselves up for someone to take advantage of us, or kill us when we're not aware.
Oh. I gulped, now worried and frightened to sleep. Diana chuckled, however, and petted my head.
You can sleep, however. I will be resting, but my eyes will remain open.
Okay. Can you truly rest like that?
Demons and humans are different, dear. Demons can function for years without needing to rest, as long as they continually feed on energy. However, demons can rest to stop spending energy. Thus why we have beds.
Interesting. My curiosity began to peck at me again, but my exhaustion took control of my body. As I felt my eyes gradually shut, I can hear Diana whisper.
I hope that you don't mind me taking your energy as you sleep.
Aww. Before I let sleep consume me, I shook my head. It was all right. Diana needed as much energy as she could for whatever the demon lord had in mind. I felt almost a bit honored that she was taking energy from me, as odd as it was. At last, sleep consumed me despite what was happening around me. The world of sleep was peaceful and calm. For the moment, I could truly be at rest. At least for a moment.
My sweet Isaiah.
Huh? What? I looked around the darkness of my dream, trying to pin down the direction of Seto's voice. Why was he in my dream? There was no reason why he should have been here. The sound of footsteps echoed in my head, causing me to grip over it and look around frantically. What was happening? Right, what? At last, a line in the darkness opened up to reveal it as an open door. Opening it was Seto with a kind smile on his face, staring into the dark space. What? I looked to him, but he didn't seem to notice me as he stepped into the room and walked past me. I followed his walk and gasped at what he was walking towards. Huh? Now illuminating by light, I took in the sight of Diana in a jail cell on her hands and knees, weak and frail, as she stared at the one approaching her.
Seto, what is happening? Why am I...
Shh.
What?
Everything is just fine, my lady.
What in the world? My heart stopped as I watched Seto kneel in front of Diana and slid his hand between the bars to lift her chin. Diana seemed to nuzzle his hand softly and unconsciously, making him chuckle.
Soon enough, I will destroy the Demon Lord and hand you the throne of the entire world. Everyone will bow to you as their queen and ruler, as they rightfully should.
Okay.
Seto, I don't understand.
You may not understand now, but you will in time. I promise.
I'm so confused. Diana crawled closer to Seto, wrapping her arms around the bars to keep her up.
Where is she? What happened to the human?
For a moment, Seto stared at Diana, looking completely oblivious to what she meant. Hey, I'm right here. Despite knowing that what I was seeing was a dream, I instinctively called out to Diana, hoping she would see me regardless. To my displeasure, she didn't.
Who are you talking about? my queen.
You know who, Seto. She...
Seto silenced Diana by gripping her chin hard. Ow! Making her gasp and stare up in shock at him.
My lady, I don't know who you are talking about.
Diana whimpered in his hold in fright. Fear painted over Diana's expression as Seto pressed his forehead against the bars to stare deep into her eyes. I felt myself rush at Seto to try and grab him, but my hands merely phased through his body like I was a ghost.
My lady, you must stay here for now.
Why?
Why? Diana's single word died out as she stared into Seto's eyes. Something in her eyes began to shift from red to gold. However, her black pupils slowly morphed into glowing black crosses. What was Seto doing? Yeah, what are
Because
you
I
doing?
have not yet finished the Demon Lord, my love.
My love? What? Why the sudden change in name? I could only watch as Seto leaned back with a grin.
Once I've finished this war, then you may come out and fulfill your destiny, with only me at your side.
Oh my god, now you're being creepy. Staring at Diana, I watched as she began to shed tears, but they were not clear as water, but black as oil. On her chest, a black burn in the shape of a cross appeared, glowing with some sort of black aura.
May those useless memories burn away. Remember only the one who has served you his entire life.
Oh, you... Seto! My words were futile. I don't know if I'm bad at that. But I couldn't stand there in silence. However, as Diana's tears finally stopped, the stains on her cheek drying along her skin, Seto stared into Diana's eyes, burning his gaze into them.
Now, do you remember the human?
Who?
Are you... No, it couldn't be. What the burn on her chest flashed a bright white aura before settling down, revealing the permanence it had over her skin. It was a real scar on her flesh, no longer a figment of magic. Seto smiled lovingly at Diana before guiding her hand forward and leaning it to kiss her between the bars. Diana closed her eyes and practically moaned against his lips, most likely feeling some sort of energy from it. However, Seto pulled away gently and made Diana pant slightly in need. Was she desperate for energy now?
Never mind, my love. Forget I said anything.
Seto ran his fingers over Diana's cheek, causing Diana to shudder at the touch and let out a pleasured sigh.
Now rest. Nothing will harm you in here.
Oh my god. Seto, I hate you. Diana nodded before slowly laying to the side and letting her body slowly shift to slumber. With another chuckle, Seto stood and turned around.
That human's life for a stone destiny. A perfect trade, if I do say so myself.
What? What? I snarled and rushed at him, but wound up running through his body and falling to the floor. Seto walked back towards the open door and stood by it to look back at Diana with an almost evil-looking smile.
Nothing will keep us apart anymore, Isaiah.
You... Okay. I jumped up and ran at him, but as he stepped through the closed door, I found myself shooting up out of the bed to sit up, panting. Gah!
What? What's wrong?
I looked over to see Diana sitting in the same spot as she was when I fell asleep and staring at me with wide concerned eyes. There was no mark on her chest and no crosses on her inner eyes, which made me feel somewhat relieved. I looked around trying to see if Seto was in the room, but he was nowhere to be found.
Are you all right?
Hmm. I don't know. Should I tell her? I had to tell her about the dream. I turned to her and took her hands, making Diana gasp and stare at me even more confused shock. I had a dream last night. Seto locked you in some sort of jail cell and wiped your memories of me, and I couldn't do anything. And
Wait, stop. What?
Diana took one of her hands from mine and placed it on my hand. Did she seriously not believe me? I glared as she stared at her hand. It's true.
I believe you, but I want to see it for myself.
I stared at her, not realizing what she was, not realizing that blah 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 words, not realizing that she was taking energy from me from my forehead. Diana closed her eyes and remained silent for a moment. How would she react? As she pulled her hand away, she smiled at me.
It was a nightmare, dear. I'm sorry you had it, but I can assure you, no magic like what you saw exists, nor would Sero ever do that to me.
Are you sure? I stared. I could see the genuine feeling behind her words, but something in my gut wouldn't let this go. How could she be so sure that magic like that didn't exist? What if Sito was a terrible person? But what if
Sero has been with me ever since I was a child. I would know if he was a bad person. There's nothing to...
Suddenly, the door in the room burst open, causing Diane and I to separate and stare at the intruder. It was a soldier who seemed to be a runner for an army, judging from his outfit.
Princess, the Demon Lord approaches!
Oh! Diana was right. The Demon Lord was going to show up today. I looked to the far window to see the sun barely up over the oddly colored purple sky. It was morning as Diana expected. Diana quickly threw her legs over the side of the bed and stood, pointing to the guard.
Tell every able-bodied soldier to head for the gates. I will be there shortly.
All right.
Yes, Your Highness!
The soldier ran out, followed by a handful of soldiers that either accompanied him or were heading in the same direction. I looked at Diana, surprised to see her ready. How much energy did she take during the night? As I got a good look of her, something about her seemed to have changed, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
I have to thank you, you know.
Huh? For what? Diana turned to look at me with a smile. As she did, I could see a faint layer of purple energy surrounding her form and her eyes glowing completely gold.
You gave me a large amount of energy last night.
Oh yeah? Her voice echoed through the room, making me eternally shudder. She sounded almost ethereal, and the power behind her voice almost drowned my senses. It was as if she were no longer a simple mortal, but a goddess. How much energy did she consume last night? As the energy and glow in her eyes faded away, Diana smiled. Diana gently took my hand and rushed with me out of the room, guiding me out of the castle. Around us, servants and soldiers rushed in one direction or another.
I need you there beside me when I face him. You won't be hurt, I promise.
Are you sure? I followed step by step, nodding in reply. I felt a bit honored that she wanted me with her, but I shook off the excitement knowing what I was walking towards. The Demon Lord was approaching, and we would be face to face with it. Before I continue, I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Just wanted to get food. Okay. I'm trying to get comfortable. Diana led me through the castle grounds and onto the battlements, overseeing the distance beyond the kingdom, where a large line of creatures lined up and outlined the horizon. I felt my heart stop as the tallest figure stood between them and us. Taller than any man I had ever witnessed was a man I was meeting for the first time, the Demon Lord. The mere sight of him sent fear. Hold on. There we go. Sent fear down my spine, but this was the man who hurt Diana, so he was my enemy.
City of Lilith, rejoice! You will fall before the sun reaches its peak.
Okay. Diana released my hand and stepped between the embrasures of the wall and walked through the air towards the ground like she was descending an invisible staircase. As she did, I jumped at the sound of the soldiers on the ground pointing their weapons towards the incoming army.
Drisi masculum dintera, pestis terame facietua!
The Diana Diana's voice bellowed through the air, causing the line of creatures to step back in fear. As her feet touched the ground, the air seemed to pulse with energy. However, the Demon Lord stepped forward with a dark grin.
Succubus, you have returned. You have failed to bring my sons home, it seems.
Reme posteres mestri
Yeah.
pictmae, nihil tibi dibio!
Demon Lord laughed at whatever Diana had shouted, making me worried for Diana. Would she be okay on her own? She stepped forward a couple of feet before pointing her palms towards the ground. Before my eyes on Diana's back, the marks adorning her skin began to dance and wave before detaching themselves from her body and forming two large demonic wings. They flapped against the air in unison, causing a large gust of wind to push forward.
Soldiers of Lilith, come to my side if you wish to shed my enemy's blood!
As Diana spoke, the soldiers who had gathered at the front rushed forward and stood in two lines at Diana's side, pointing their weapons at the Demon Lord and his armies. In number, Diana and her soldiers were outmatched 10 or 20-fold. However, something told me that the battle would be in Diana's favor. At my sides, a large line of archers positioned themselves and aimed at the army, ready to fire on command.
Steady, men!
I looked to the side to see Seto walking down the line with his hand raised, waiting for a signal. However, the sight of him made me remember how he was in my nightmare. Could he be as evil as he was then?
Patro verdis, astit covivomi Mika!
From Diana, a large, thick tendril with a gigantic mouth began to quickly sprout and spill out from the magic circle floating above her chest, slided across her body and down towards the ground. As I stared, I could recognize the shape of the mouth from when Diana first met me, when she dangled me over before letting me make a deal with her. Oh yeah, I remember that. Soon the tendril released itself from Diana's body and took took physical form with purple and black scales. A head formed where its teeth was convulsing. I don't know if I pronounced that right. With new moment as a wicked purple tongue lashed from its newly formed mouth. A giant 100-foot snake now stood between the Demon Lord's army and Diana's army, hissed at the creatures in the front line and quickly began to slither forward in hunger. I didn't get a chance to watch an attack. I turned back to Diana to see her bleh. I can't with words. Were lift off the ground and form a purple saber in her hand, lifting it above her head.
For the pride of Lilith, to battle!
At her last words, Diana flew forward and slashed through the air, causing a large purple arc to shoot out of her saber and strike down a section of the Demon Lord's front line. I watched as both armies charged forward and towards each other and began to clash swords. Excuse me. Beside me, a rain of arrows flew from the battlements down towards the incoming section of Demon Lord's army, causing me to duck in case they returned fire. To my surprise and glee, the Demon Lord's army couldn't push Diana or her army back. They held their positions and cut down every enemy that came at them. The Demon Lord, watching instead of fighting, glared as Diana flew through the air, cutting down sections of the army with ease. The snake that Diana had summoned was dealing major damage to the enemy as well, carving through the lines and devouring handfuls of them at a time. Each time it did, it either got bigger or became much more menacing. I could barely take it all in. The battle was merciless, seemingly endless. Diana's army was small but had strong morale, cutting through the Demon Lord's men with ease. The archers beside me continued raining arrows of the incoming soldiers, hoping to nickel and dime their numbers for the ground troops. I was glad that Diana wanted me there, but I knew that I wasn't ready to fight in a war, so I kept crouched to watch the battle safely. Eventually, Diana's armies began to push back, forcing the enemy soldiers to either retreat or try to regain ground. Diana, however, decided it was time to deal with the real threat and swooped towards the Demon Lord. I can't pronounce words. Both demons arched their weapons at each other, Diana with her saber and the Demon Lord with a giant sword, and clashed steel as they did. Purple flame and red lightning spasmed from the impact and pressed against each other in battle of strength. The Demon Lord looked so much bigger than Diana, but somehow Diana matched his strength and did not budge in the parry.
How? You cannot be this strong!
You know nothing of true strength!
Some of the battling around and the duel stopped just from the sheer sight of Diana matching the Demon Lord's power.
I am the Princess of Lilith. I will defy your will and save this world from your tyranny once and for all!
A collective gasp echoed through the air as Diana somehow managed to push back against the Demon Lord, forcing him to step back in the parry. Diana was doing it. She was defeating him. The Demon Lord slid his sword from the parry and swung again at Diana, making her block but failed to push her back. He repeated his attack three times, but continued to be pushed back each time. The soldiers around them took in the moral inspiration and fought back tenfold, forcing the Demon Lord's army back over the arching horizon. Diana and the Demon Lord, however, continued to clash swords, beating steel to steel. As the Demon Lord finally jumped back, he formed a large ball of red lightning in his hand, shooting it towards Diana like a flash of thunder. Oh god. The attack impacted, sending Diana flying back, but with her wings, Diana managed to flip back to face the Demon Lord with ease. In retaliation, Diana formed a spiraling set of purple fireballs above her hand and chucked them at the Demon Lord. With a glare, the Demon Lord slashed through each ball, forcing them to dissolve into the air.
Isaiah!
Diana glared hard in reply before flying at her opponent, slashing through the air with her saber. From there, it became a battle of blades and close-range magic attacks. Neither side would give in, and no soldier dared to step in, afraid of being the victim to one of their attacks. I would, if I were them. The duel became blurred by the sheer speed passing between them, frantic and powered at once. It was slightly dizzying. Finally, the two slid away from each other. Diana was intact, breathing heavily from the exerting so much energy, and the Demon Lord was weaponless. Adjusting my eyes, I could see that he was no longer carrying a weapon and was gripping his arm tightly to stop some wound from bleeding out.
How could this happen? How?
Diana didn't respond. She flew forward to engage him again, but stopped as the Demon Lord's body became overcome by red lightning. As if the lightning had ended him, the Demon Lord's body vanished.
I will return, and your kingdom will fall!
Yeah, like that's gonna happen. His voice echoed through the air, haunting everyone and making the trees around us bend and sway at its might. However, as the voice died out, the army of the Demon Lord left behind vanished as well. It took a moment to take it in. We had won the battle. We fought and drove the Demon Lord and his army out of the kingdom. We did it! Quickly, the soldiers of Diana's army cheered huzzas for their victory. Diana's snake vanished at last, and Diana herself slowly began to fly back towards me. I was grinning ear to ear as she slid between the embrasures to me. However, I did not expect Diana's eyes to roll to the back of her head and for her to collapse against me. I wrapped my arms around Diana as she indeed fainted in my arms. Diana!
Isaiah!
As I collapsed on my knees, on my knees with Diana in my arms, Sarah rushed over and dropped to his knees beside us, taking one of Diana's hands. Diana, however, didn't react even as energy began to flow from Seto to Diana's hand. I hugged her to me, trying to give her energy through my body. However, as I tried, Seto pulled Diana away from me and lifted her head to kiss her. As their lips locked, Diana's hand unconsciously moved and cupped Seto's cheek. I didn't trust Seto one bit, and I didn't want him kissing Diana, even if he was doing it to give her energy. I grabbed Diana and pulled her back to me, wrapping my arms around her and glaring at Seto hard.
What?
I can give her energy just fine. I could feel the poisonous tone in my voice slither into each word I said to Seto. However, as I finished speaking and as the look in Seto's eyes switched from surprise to anger, Diana began to stir in my arms. Diana! Diana slowly opened her eyes and looked up to me, dazed but still growing a small smile on her face. Diana slowly lifted herself up onto her feet. Instinctively, Seto and I both grabbed onto Diana's arms, helping her up. She looked to both of us with a kind smile.
Thank you.
I couldn't tell which of us she was thinking, but I accepted it with a smile of my own. You did it, Diana. You drove him back. Diana chuckled a bit before standing up straight. Her wings that had been folded against her back splayed out behind her near us, causing Seto and I to step back as Diana began to speak, her voice booming through the air. The cheers around us became silent.
Friends, we have won this battle, but they will not be gone for long. This is the beginning of a war to end tyranny, to end chaos.
I could tell that every demon in the era era, area had their ears and hearts open to Diana, I felt myself become full of courage just from listening to her speak.
You have shown great courage today, but you must build even more for the war ahead. The Demon Lord will try to cut you down, but we will prevail! As I am the last living heir to this grand kingdom, I swear unto you all that I will fight until the very end and free this world of the evil that is the Demon Lord. With this, I urge you to stand with me and fight by my side, not as my subjects, but as my brothers and sisters. I ask now, who will stand with me?
The sound that came after was loud and eardrum piercing. The sound of 1,000 cheers beat through the air and showed the alliance. I can't pronounce that. Alliance. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Oh goodness. Of every demon in the area, and then some. I could only stare in awe as Diana took in everyone's cheers and took in a heavy breath. It was then that I knew that I had become part of something grand at the side of a woman who would change history. The following days were full of chaos. The Demon Lord tried to come back and reclaim his pride, but Diana somehow managed to press back with ease, giving him more wounds than inflicted before. It was like the castle became an impregnable fortress. Soon word spread around the neighboring kingdoms that the Demon Lord's defeat and continued failed attempts to attack. Many leaders sent messages of alliances, which Diana humbly accepted, and soon enough we drove the Demon Lord's army far back away from us. After every battle, she would wind up in my arms, with much to the slightly obvious disapproval of Sido. Whenever a demon questioned my presence, Diana would simply wave them off with a small token of praise towards me.
She is my most honored guest, and she is here to help us win this war.
Still, the thought of what we officially were began to make me concerned. Did Diana see me more than an energy source and ally? We had kissed before we returned, but since then I couldn't have been more unsure. I began to question myself. Why was I here? I could only shake my head in response. I shouldn't doubt anything. We were in the midst of a war, and with Diana at the front, she had many responsibilities, many that I could never even hope to think on. The peninsula, I don't know if I pronounced that right, moment of our relationship, however, came when a brute demon stormed into the castle all on his own. He was unarmed and carrying a single item, which made many demons step away from him in fright. Diana, Sido, and I were in the war room with 3 other beings whom I had named Faye, Rabbit, and Shadow, for simply I can't pronounce that. When the doors to the room swung open, everyone was forced to turn their heads from the map we were previously poring over. What? All protests became silent as the being who entered chucked the object in his hand onto the table. As it settled to a stop in the middle of the map, all the demons in the room stared in an absolute shock. What is that? Lying on the table was a red broken horn. There was no blood or bone in it, but it was indeed the horn of the being who had stormed in. I became confused, wondering why this being decided to throw his horn at us. As I looked at Diana, however, I could see the shock in her eyes. The expression on her face was a mixture of fear, surprise, and a little flattery, like someone had given her an exotic bouquet of bloody thorn-filled roses. Diana finally looked up at the demon who had entered the room and examined him.
Brute demon, what is the meaning of this?
What does it look like?
It looks like you're swearing your allegiance to the rebellion. But the question is why?
He swore allegiance with his horn?
It's a brute demon tradition. If they leave their tribe to serve a non-nomadic kingdom without marrying into it, then they must break a horn in allegiance.
However, from what I
Allegiance, that's how you
recall,
say
there
it.
are no more tribes left in the demon world after the demon lord's mass genocide of the brute demons.
I stared wide-eyed at Shadow. Massive genocide. The demon lord had that much power to eliminate an entire demon race? I looked to the brute demon, seeing him glare hard at Shadow at his remark.
Well, he didn't kill everyone.
So there are more of you?
A flash of grief flashed in the brute's eyes before he looked down at the table.
No, I'm the only one left, and I refuse to let that bastard get away with this.
Wow. I felt incredibly terrible for the grief he had to bear. It must have been horrible to be the last of his kind. I looked at Diana, wondering what she would do with this information. The look on Diana's face was blah. She was obviously in deep thought, but how was she going to handle the situation before her? Finally, she took in a breath and let out a sigh before speaking.
Sir Brute, you come swearing your allegiance to the rebellion. Is there anything you demand of us for your service?
It was a question she asked every alliance leader. They often ask for the promise of freedom or an oath of protection from harm. The demons who were with us in the room simply joined out of their own interest. What about this demon? The brute demon rolled his shoulders back and stared hard at Diana, making her straighten up a bit.
I ask for you to perform a sending.
A what?
Ascending?
For the souls of your people?
The brute nodded before stepping up and placing his large hand on the table, staring at the back of it with it in torn shame.
My people did not deserve death, but their ashes now lie in the earth. There is no one who can give them a proper sending, so I ask that you, Succubus, do this for me in return for my service.
Okay. I looked to Faye, hoping they would explain, but Diana turned to me and spoke instead.
Dear, ascending is a ritual brute demons perform to honor their deceased. It is a ritual of both celebration and grief, so it must be done with a full heart.
Oh, thanks. Diana smiled at me and nodded before turning back to the brute. I was happy that she was still willing to teach me despite her position. The brute, however, finally took notice of me and glared. Why?
A human? What is it doing here?
Be nice. Excuse me, it? I became suddenly irritated and stepped forward to confront the demon, but Diana placed a hand on my shoulder and cleared her throat.
She is a vital part of this war, Sir Brute. Please do not disrespect her.
Yeah, please don't. Don't be a jerk. I looked at Diana, seeing her press her lips together in a fine line and stare into the brute's soul. A part of me felt extremely flattered at her protection. However, I could practically feel Seto's jealous aura from the other side of Diana. Oh, shut up, Seto. The brute took a hard stare at me before eventually nodding and crossing his arms.
So, will you do it?
Diana took a moment to herself, staring at the wooden table and thought. I began to ponder as well about it. He seemed to be a worthy ally, but Diana seemed torn. Was it appropriate for a demon who wasn't a brute to do it? I placed my hand on Diana's shoulder and nodded, and she looked at me in curiosity. If the brute wanted her to do it, then she should gain a potentially powerful ally. I smiled and nodded to her as she slowly relaxed under my gaze. After a moment, Diana turned to the brute demon and nodded.
Very well. I will perform the sending of your fallen kin.
When?
This afternoon.
Everyone hitched their breath in surprise at Diana's words. She would perform the same day? Did she even know how to perform it properly? Diana. With a chuckle, Diana looked to me with a small smirk.
I'll be fine, dear. I know a fair amount of brute demon rituals.
Oh yeah? The afternoon became full of hustle. Servants were rushing back and forth trying to prepare for a ritual they knew little to nothing about. Luckily, Shadow and Rabbit helped instruct everyone properly. I was taken to my room, given an opportunity to rest, but as I was sent to bed, I felt restless. I didn't want to sit around and do nothing for the day. There was much I could do. Despite being a human, I wasn't some decoration. I defied my instructions and wandered, hoping to find Diana. I wanted to help her if possible, but as I approached the room she was practicing in, I managed to catch a pair of voices.
My lady, I must insist.
Insist that I lock her in her room like a prisoner? Out of the question.
What the hell? Seto, you jerk! I quietly pressed myself against the wall near the doorway and continued to listen in, now wondering what was going on.
She is not a pet or a slave, Sero. She is my guest and greatest ally.
I understand this, but she's also a human. Every time someone new comes to forge an alliance with the rebellion, the human's presence is questioned.
If they are turned away by a mere human, then they are worthless allies.
My lady, you are not understanding my point.
Then what is the point, Sero?
A small silence followed. I was in awe that Diana was defending me so hard. As for Seto, I began to hear the jealous beast he was hiding. What was he going to do?
My point is that people are questioning what she is to you.
Seto, I'm starting to hate you. The question pained me to realize, but I was curious as well. What was I to her? She vouched for me as an ally, but did she like me as I liked her? I came with her to fix this world, but I truly came for her. After a painfully long silence, Diana spoke again.
I care for her. Very much so. Like I care for you, Sero. She is very important to me, for many reasons. She has become part of my life, and anyone who questions why will be silenced. Is that enough to appease you?
Yeah, is it?
It is not my place to be appeased.
So though I really hate you. I took a breath, taking in what Diana had said. She cared for me. I wasn't sure whether to feel happy or sad at that, but I had to take it in that she cared enough to protect and defend me. I didn't get to feel the emotion for long, however, as Faye flew up behind me and grinned. I panicked for a moment, hoping that they wouldn't give away my position, but they whispered to me understanding.
Psst! We're about to go prepare the ritual dance area thing. Whatever. Want to come watch?
I opened my mouth to object, but was stopped by Diana's voice.
Now, please, leave me be. I have to prepare and cannot afford any more distractions.
I grimaced. I came to help, but I guess she had to work alone. I left with Faye, not wanting to be caught by Seto, and understanding that she needed to be alone to work this ritual seemed very important to her, and the brute demon that demanded it of her. Bleh. In truth, I was excited to see Diana to go through with it. The fact that she was willing to dance for the brute demon was surprising. When Faye and the handful of demons that helped them finish their work, I stood in front of the line of a crowd surrounding the ritual area. Excuse me. To say that I was mildly nervous for her was an understatement. Did Diana even know how to do the sending? From what she insinuated to me as she brought me to my room, she would be given instructions to and follow them to a T. Would she be able to do it? A small, quiet wave of gas came towards my direction, causing me to look over at where they originated from. I stared wide-eyed at what I saw. Diana? Wow. Nice artwork. Diana was dressed in some sort of dancer garb with purple paint over her already tainted skin, shaping symbols around her body. In her hands were two large sabers glowing in the sunlight. She was absolutely stunning. Diana stepped between the crowd as they parted ways for her and into a chalk-drawn circle which separated the ritual area and the ones watching it. Her bare feet guided her to the center as a couple of other demons, each holding an instrument, set up near the edgeway from where it was. At last the air was filled with complete silence. The look on Diana's face showed pure concentration and focus as she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The drums echoed through the air as the dance finally began. I stared, memorized by what I was watching. Diana's entire body moved in time with the beat and the instruments floating through the air. The sabers she was holding glided through the air as if they were slicing through it with perfect ease. As the beat moved, her lips and shoulders rolled fiercely with like a hypnotic and passionate belly dance routine mixed with an African tribal step. However, her focus remained on the sabers in her hand and the circle she was instructed to dance within. Her bare feet hit the ground hard with her heels jutting into the dirt, not hard enough to disturb the soil, but loud enough to echo alongside the drum beat. My breath was taken away by the sight. However, I wasn't the only one blown away by the dancing succubus.
She's beautiful, isn't she?
I didn't turn my head away, but I could tell that Seto had stepped up to stand beside me and watch Diana dance. The two of us stood side by side, watching the person we both cared about giving homage to an extinct demon race. Seto's voice was barely audible over the sound of the drums and chants in the air.
I love her.
Aw. I still hate you though, Seto. I stopped my thoughts. I looked over to Seto, seeing his gaze still plastered towards Diana. His expression was cool and like stone, serious in what he had said and meant. He loved her.
I've loved her ever since we were children. I've been by her side through everything, and she's given meaning to my life. I would give my life for her if she demanded it.
Interesting. At last, Seto looked at me with a small fire burning in his eyes. Through his gaze, I could see the devotion and truth in his soul, knowing how deeply he cared for Diana.
What say you to that?
I love her too. She loves me. What I say doesn't matter. Seto was serious about his affection, so was I. Seto stared wide-eyed as I smiled and nodded to him, understanding his feelings. I feel happy when I'm with her. She taught me so much during the time we spent together about demons and the 5 worlds. I can still hardly believe it all exists at once. I looked back to Diana, seeing her continue her dance with a concentrated expression. The more I thought of her, the happier I felt myself becoming. The thought of all she had done, while what she did was a tragedy. It was in desperation. She had no choice. I understood that and knew eventually that without the act I never would have learned about this world of magic or magic at all. Before I met her, my life was boring and bland. I went to school and was only allowed to think about my future. When Diana appeared, she changed my life. She showed me an entire new universe, and I will never be able to thank her enough for that. I know you've been with her for a very long time. Siddle needed to see her importance to me. I desperately loved her and wanted to be with her. That was why I came in the first place. I wouldn't let Siddle's love for her sway my feelings for her. I was given silence as Siddle's reply. Diana's dance continued into the night. Surprising me, she had this much stamina. Despite watching her, she didn't stop to break once, most likely expanding energy to keep moving. How long the dance had to go for? As the torchlights illuminated the space and the moon was at the top of the sky, Diana finally stopped, panting hard and clashing the sabers together to cause a ring of steel to bounce through the air. The audience clapped wildly, many deeply captivated enough to stay the entire time, as some joined in during later hours of the ritual. The brute whom I decided to dub as Sergeant, I stepped from the crowd to the ritual space and walked towards Diana. Letting the sabers vanish into the air, Diana looked to one approaching her with a tired stare. Silence lingered between them as Sergeant held out his arm to Diana. With a smile, Diana reached out and clasped her hands onto his forearm.
Honorimus dirigendo pedes.
Victoria in consummatione.
Another round of cheers echoed through the air at the words exchanged between them. I smiled, knowing that Diana had appeased Sergeant and his people. Diana released her hold on his hand and nodded to him before looking towards me and ushering me to her. I quickly rushed over and she lifted her arm and placed it along my shoulders tiredly. Diana?
I need a little help.
I could feel Seto's gaze on my back. Would he step in and fight me, doing as she asked? I looked back to see him watching with a blank expression. What was going on in his mind? With a laugh to Diana, I led her back to my room where she sat tiredly on the bed. The exhaustion in her face was clear and her body quaked from over itself. You dance so beautifully, Diana. With a smile, Diana looked up at me and blushed a bit. To see her face go a slight pink made her look so adorable.
You flatter me, dear.
I could only smile before she slowly stood back up and took my hand. Surprising me, she kept her head down, however, which made me even more confused as to what she was doing. Diana?
Dear, I'm sorry.
Huh? For what? Diana grimaced a bit before looking up at me with serious eyes. They flickered back and forth between red and gold, but she stood her ground.
For the intolerance from my kind. Humans aren't exactly welcomed in this world.
That's what this was about. I understood completely, but it seemed to hit Diana the hardest. After all, she was the one who brought me into this world. I cupped Diana's cheek and smiled at her, causing her expression to go from shame to surprise. Diana, it's all right. Diana hitched her breath. It was true, though. I had grown to love her for everything she had done. She was brave, powerful, beautiful, everything I desired in a person. My heart beat wildly for her, and I could only pray that she understood my feelings. Diana looked to her hands, her eyes watering a bit. I instinctively wiped her eyes a bit with my fingers, now concerned. Diana?
I don't know what love is.
I stared dumbfounded. She didn't know what love was. However, she surprised me by placing a gentle, shaking hand on my cheek, leaning in.
But I'm willing to learn, if it's with you.
Aww. I gasped slightly, seeing the earnest and care in her eyes before she closed them and gently planted a kiss on my cheek. A soft shudder ran down my spine. I felt her soft lips press against my skin. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to kiss her. I pulled Diana close and wrapped my arms around her neck, capturing her lips with my own. She gasped, surprised at my sudden eagerness, but slowly began to melt into the kiss between us. Her lips were as heavenly as the night I first tasted them. Okay. Her arms gently wrapped themselves around my waist, pulling me close to her body. The jangle of her brute dancer garb echoed in the room, making me smile slightly at the surprise noise. I had nearly forgotten that she was still in her dancer outfit. On their own, my fingers slowly danced down Diana's shoulder and traced over the seams of her outfit, making her body shudder ever so slightly. Was she enjoying a mere touch that much? Or was she hungry for energy? I pulled away slightly, seeing her eyes dance between red and gold, some control trying to be maintained within her gaze on me. She was out of energy and she needed more than just a kiss. For now, I would take it slow. I leaned back and kissed her, leaned back in and kissed her again, this time biting. Hi, how are you? Let go of the control she had. I wanted her to relax for me and to be the one to comfort her and hold her against me. Maybe it was because of the call her succubus body had on me, or maybe it was because my heart desired to be with her that much. I didn't care, but I obeyed the command of my heart to drive her to the pleasure we both craved. The night would be for us, and the warmth of the afterglow would be exquisite. I'm doing good, and this is Seduce Me to the Demon War, and I'm playing this on my PC. The first Seduce Me game is free on Steam, and I just actually bought the complete story on Steam. So it is on Steam and on mobile. Diana released an almost carnal moan against my lips and tightened her grip on my waist, almost slamming my body against hers. My plan was working and she was falling for my temptations. I couldn't help the smirk that painted itself across my face at the gesture. In return, I quickly rushed my hand up Diana's body and combed my fingers through her hair before gripping her horns. To my surprise, Diana released a moan against my lips, causing me to pull away and stare into Diana's surprised eyes. A blush ran across her cheeks, but her gaze melted into one of lust and desire as I held her horns in my grasp. Were her horns her weak point? I gripped them harder. They're her weak point? I was right. I pulled Diana closer to me with her horns and almost slammed my lips into hers, wanting to devour the moans she was releasing. I felt myself become more passionate in the kiss between us, needing to feel more of her. Diana dug her nails into my hips and practically pushed me onto the bed behind me, causing us to bounce on the mattress. I reflexively released her horns and felt my hands fall back on either side of me as Diana smirked down at my form. Yeah, an image that I found on Google. It's part of the Japanese game that I play wallpaper.
You're not playing fair.
Okay, that thumbnail though, I like it. I felt a small warm ignite in my core, pleading with me to ravish her again, but I felt myself become lost in her dominant gaze over me. I felt the clothing on my body become uncomfortable and I wanted to take it all off beneath her, but I remained locked in her sight. Diana ran a hand along my cheek and traced a finger down my body, slowing its dance. Over each curve it found lovingly and sending shivers up my spine. Look who's talking. Diana chuckled before leaning in nose to nose with me.
Let me make you feel good.
Oh my god, Diana. At last, Diana became the one who intimidated our kiss. Initiated. Wow, words. Blah. A little. Initiated our kiss, her hands pressing down on my waist to pin me to the bed beneath us. I wrapped my legs around her waist, pulling her to me and causing a chuckle to echo from between our lips. Her hands began to comb over my skin and tug my shirt off of my body. I felt her pull away to strip it off of me. It was tossed to the side to be forgotten, for our focus remained on each other. I felt myself turn red at what we were slowly diving into, taking in the fact that I had initiated a dance with the succubus I had grown to love. It was unfair that she was in control, but it was only natural. I had barely noticed the grab over Diana's body disappearing, leaving her bare over me despite the purple taint over her skin covering her essentials. I could tell that she was still very much new just from the heat between us. Diana's kisses trailed down my cheek and neck, nipping over my skin and making the warmth within my core burn even hotter. Indeed, every kiss and touch she placed on me made my mind spin and dance in endless waves of soft euphoria. I knew that this wasn't her first time being intimate, but I could tell that every touch made it blah. That every touch she made, she only did for me and my own pleasure. She truly, indeed, listened intent to make me feel good. I became like. I became like putty in her hands, my own eventually resting above my head as I let her strip me bare and massage over every inch of my body. She didn't just kiss over me, she made every muscle of my body obey her with her fingers and palms. Even as her tongue licked over my. Okay. Oh god, Michaela, with how you made this so descriptive. She took great care in watching my reactions and listening to my modes, working her way into my mind, body, and soul to tie them all together in a heated frenzy of lust and desire. This was truly the work of a master succubus, and I was able to call her mine. Even as my cries echoed through the room, she didn't stop until I was floating on cloud nine. Her pleasure came from my moans and multiple releases, filling herself with my energy and devouring the pleasure we shared hungrily and lovingly. I was in heaven in a succubus's embrace. I barely could register her arms around my form as she held me close to her and kissed over my hair.
My sweet love, I will hold you close for as long as I can.
I love you, Diana. What's that? What's Earthbound? I never heard that. And I will be with you forever. My heart fluttered at the feelings, I can't pronounce that, within my chest. I was happy and I would keep this happiness close to me for as long as I lived. I awoke after a peaceful sleep, staring up at Diana as she leaned back against the bedpost reading a book I didn't recognize. As I started the shift, Diana looked down at me and grew a loving smile. I'll have to check that out.
Good morning, dear. Ready for today?
Yes. Despite feeling the tired effects of the morning, I nodded with a smile of my own. I could tell that today was going to be a good day. Diana closed her book and placed it on the table beside the bed before standing stretching her body. However, mid-stretch Diana froze. In fact, the entire room became frozen as if time itself had stopped. Huh? Diana? I felt myself move freely despite the air around me being still. I stood from the bed and walked around Diana, seeing her frozen like a statue. What was going on?
Human.
Oh my god, Seto, what the hell do you want? My heart froze as I looked to see Seto by the corner of the room, arms crossed and stare cold as ice. What was he doing? Don't be a jerk. Seto, what do you...
Come with me.
Seto... Without another word, Seto left the room into the hall. I was massively confused but followed, now worried what would happen if I didn't. Oh god, I feel like her nightmare's gonna come true. What Seto does to her. Oh god. As we walked down the hall, I was stunned to see every person in the castle frozen in time. Seto, what are you gonna do to me? How is this possible? How is Seto doing this? Seto was silent the entire walk. Eventually, we walked to the gold set of doors which led to the chamber her family was killed. I hesitated, staring warily at Seto before seeing him open the chamber. Seto, what do you want from me? I swear to goodness. To my surprise, the room changed from a nursery room full of blood to a view of an outdoor space. As far as I could see were trees and plant life bustling and full of life. What the hell? Seto stepped in and waited at the door, ushering me inside. I followed despite every nerve in my body yelling at me to just run back. I had to see this through, whatever this was. Seto led me into the forest of trees, making sure I was able to see him the entire time until we reached a patch of land with a singular large tree covered in pink and purple petals. Whoa. I found myself become entranced at the sight. What was this place? What was it? Why was it here? As I examined the tree, I noted the major, I can't pronounce that word, of fruits in the branches. Is it like just like a storybook, or is there gameplay too? It is more like a story. Seems like what I've gotten from it from like the first game, almost like both, but mostly story. More like a storybook. Like it's a visual novel game. So mostly a storybook more than gameplay. I have noticed. I found myself become entranced at the sight. What? Oh, I already read that. Bleh. Thank you. I smiled, knowing exactly what they were. Sweet flowers.
You know of them?
I nodded. Diana gave me a slice of one. In the human world. They're the best thing I've ever tasted. I could faintly remember the taste of it. It was perfectly sweet and moist. I was full of energy after that day. I was hardly able to keep it all in. Seto let out a small chuckle, drawing my attention.
I was barely walking when I had my first taste. My lady climbed the tree and picked it herself before splitting it open down the middle and giving me one of the halves.
Oh, really? I slightly smiled, imagining a young Diana and Seto doing such a thing. Cute. As my gaze wandered to the tree, I spotted the crowns of Diana's parents and sister at the base, making me frown a bit. At the sight, Seto let out a small sigh.
Tell me honestly, do you truly believe you can make her happy?
Seto... I looked up at Seto, surprised at the question. His face was stern and serious as he gripped to his spear in a white-knuckle grip. Why was he asking such a question? Right. With a nod, I took in a breath and stood up straight. I do. I truly loved her and wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. I knew that Seto had been with her his entire life, but I couldn't stop what I was feeling for his sake. Seto stared hard at me, taking in what I was saying before raising his spear, pointed it at me.
You truly love her?
I do. I'm sorry if that upsets you. I'm actually really sorry that blah blah words. I'm actually really sorry that it upsets you too. Upsets you. Okay, words. A moment passed. What would Seto do? I prayed that he wouldn't strike me down. I hoped that he was willing to listen and compromise. A small chuckle escaped Seto's lips, causing me to look at him in confusion. What? Seto, you're confusing me. His face painted his concern and his strange thoughts on this almost humorous situation. As he lowered his spear, he shook his head.
It doesn't upset me. I just want Azayr to be happy.
Oh yeah? As do I. Seto locked eyes with me, gazing into my soul to judge my words for the truth. I was being honest, and truly to know that both of us cared and loved Diana was amazing to fathom. Eventually, Seto smiled slightly despite his heart breaking beneath his eyes.
Then you should continue being at her side.
Oh, Seto. I was astonished. Seto was giving me his blessing. I wasn't sure what to say. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing was able to come out from the sheer shock I was in. Seto, however, chuckled quietly, holding his forehead.
How pathetic am I? I was ready when Diana went off to marry her betrothed, but I'm nowhere near ready for this.
Oh, Seto. I couldn't help but frown. Seto deeply loved Diana, and I felt terrible having to be the one to break his heart. Still, I couldn't lie to myself about this. I would have been in the same position if Seto took her away from me. I took a breath, trying to be strong. I'm sorry. I promised, though, that I will protect and love her for the rest of my life. I'm sorry, Seto. With a grimace, Seto looked to me once more, judging my truth. When he found I can't pronounce that word, he nodded and took a shaky breath. For the first time since we had met, it was the first time I saw him give up.
What is going on?
Diana? Seto and I suddenly looked to the direction of Diana's voice, seeing her completely red in the face in anger. As she walked forward, Seto bowed his head in submission.
My lady, I
asked Seto if we can talk in private. Diana stopped walking and stared at me with the most confused look I had ever seen. I giggled a bit before stepping to her and taking her hand. I wanted to ask him if it was okay to be with you. He's part of our family after all. Blah. Seto looked up at me in shock, but not in an unpleasant way. He seemed more surprised that I was covering for him, if anything. Diana looked at Seto, seeing his expression before looking to me in mild curiosity.
You asked him if you could be with me?
I nodded, pulling her to me slightly as I softly said her real name. She slightly gasped in shock. Azayr, I love you and I want to be with you forever. I know that I'm just a human, but I want to be by your side and I love you for the rest of my days. Diana was completely speechless. She stared deep into my gaze, both in shock and in utter amazement. I, however, stood my ground. My heart was in the air, hoping it wouldn't come crashing down. As Diana smiled, however, it began to swell. Diana gently held my cheek and caressed it lovingly. Yeah, I really love the art style to this game. It's one of my favorites. I love Michaela Laws, who created this game, and whoever did the art style did an awesome job.
I would be honored to call you mine, my heart.
Oh, Diana, I love you. I couldn't stop myself from crying. My chest became overwhelmed by emotions of love that I almost couldn't contain myself. Seto stood and smiled at both of us, causing us to look over. Diana's hand squeezed over mine as she looked apologetically at her guard.
Zero,
It's all right, my lady. All I have ever wanted was your happiness.
Aww. Yeah, an indie game. Seto walked over and gently leaned over, kissing Diana's cheek before stepping back.
I will serve you and protect your love for as long as I live.
Aww. Diana choked a sob, covering her mouth as tears gently began to flow from her eyes. Seto only smiled and walked around us towards where the castle was. Leaving us together, we watched him go before turning to each other. I wiped away Diana's tears as she slowly tried to calm down, despite it being futile, whatever you pronounce that word. I chuckled a bit at the sight. Yeah, he's lying. Yeah. I love you, Zaire. Diana took a breath, trying to regain herself before pulling me to her and wrapping her arms around me.
I love you too.
Oh. I leaned up and captured her lips in mine, earning a sweet kiss back as our lips touched. The wind around us picked up, causing the leaves on the tree above us to sway. Oh. Pink and purple leaves that had fallen from the branches flew up and danced around us ecstatically. As if the world was giving us its blessing, I was more than happy to be with this woman I vowed to give her everything as she would do the same for me. Aww. We were completely happy. The energy that sparked within Diana completely filled her with power, giving her the strength to completely, and I can't pronounce that word, the Demon Lord's army almost single-handedly. What many expected to take years to accomplish, Diana took days. Every attack the Demon Lord threw at us, I hate the Demon Lord, he sucks, threw at us ended with him becoming utterly defenseless, soldierless, and powerless. Despite him managing to escape each time, we dwindled his troops to a mere handful of imp demons. Soon we have cornered him against a stretch of water called the decaying sea. In his castle, Seto, Diana, and I stood upon a cliff top, staring down at the legends that had gathered below us. We mentally prepared ourselves for what would be the final battle.
To think, this will finally be over.
Yeah.
Once it is, you will become the new queen of this world.
I looked over to Diana, seeing a soft glimmer of fear in her face. Was she not prepared for that responsibility? I took her hand, causing her to look over at me in surprise. As I nodded, I let a grin paint over my face. Why is the Demon Lord so angry? He's just always angry. I don't really understand why that much, but he just wants to face war, that's it. He's just a jerk and I don't really like him that much. You'll be an amazing queen. Yeah, she will be an amazing queen. Diana looked to the crowd and stepped forward, slightly arching her back towards the legends below. She no longer was just Diana, but she had become the mighty queen of the rebellion, one that I loved with all of my heart.
Milites! Et hoc liberati sturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris! Sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem, nocte, lavabir mur, arcem, hostium sanguine!
I have no idea what she said, but okay.
Ele Dio dominati sun nostri, nostre struet, ium mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos.
Yeah, there was no way that I would even pronounce that myself, so yeah. Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly as the purple tint over her skin began to twist and turn before my eyes. The taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed into her beautiful demonic wings. I watched with pride as Diana's body lifted off the ground and began to fly over the legend, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
Yeah! And let the demon lord die, he's a jerk! And that cry marked the dawn of change. The demon world would end the age of the demon lords, I can't pronounce that word, and begin the age of united peace and prosperity. With Diana soaring through the air bowed to her and proved her worthy of such power. Yeah, purple. Purple is like one of my favorite colors. As I stared, time around me slowed as I took in everything that had happened. We were at the end of this war. Then where would we truly go from there? Who knew? But I knew that I would be at Diana's side forevermore. I managed to seduce her into bringing me to the new world and experience everything. We were in love, and I was certain that she would become the beacon of life, not only for me, but for every demon in this world. After all, she managed to seduce me too. The demon war was only the beginning of our life together.
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out.
Oh yeah, Kay?
Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise. I mean, come on. You got to be with a succubus and help her fight in a war.
Right.
How crazy is that?
Very crazy.
You even got her to admit that she is in love with you.
Oh.
Go you! Demons are very hard to convince that you love them. Tell me about it. I know.
Thank you.
Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to... Huh? You want to know what happened after the war?
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess I could tell you. After the war was finished, the entire rebellion celebrated. Word spread far and wide about the rebellion's success, and soon every kingdom in the Abyssal Plains had become united with the new authority.
Cool.
You would think demons would be more hostile towards each other, being demons and all,
Right.
but the threat of the demon lord was what brought the entire world together. The final battle between Diana and the demon lord became quickly one-sided, as he was no match for the power that she had gathered from your love.
Aw.
Guess the power of love really does conquer all. Anyway,
Right?
when the war ended, the entire rebellion celebrated as Diana presented his head to the masses like a trophy before burning it and letting the ashes sink into the ground. The day after, she became queen of the demon world. It definitely shocked her, and it took her a while to get used to being called Your Highness by the other demons.
I can imagine.
But you helped her through it.
I can imagine it would be hard for her to get used to being called that instead of a princess.
Sarah began to focus more on the military and only guarded Diana publicly. When they were out of the public eye, however, Sarah left her to you to care for.
Aww.
Diana always preferred your company regardless.
Aw.
You got her wrapped around your little finger, don't you? There's still the question of what you'll do now that the demon war is over. Diana is the queen and all, so she can't really leave.
Yeah, the game does have very good voice acting there. The entire cast is so awesome. They are all so funny. I love them all.
You'll figure it out, I'm sure.
The demon world finally knew peace. It was a grand moment, the sounds of a million cheers echoing and burning themselves in my memory in celebration for the end of the war. Diana had finally destroyed the demon lord, and soon enough he would watch her become the... I can't pronounce that. Of the Abyssal Plains, uniting the entire world under her rule. It was almost too unreal to experience and see as a human. However, I was happy for Diana and I was proud to stand beside her and support her through it all. The war was an experience and a half, and I would never forget it for as long as I lived. As for me, I found myself drawn to Diana, hoping to spend every night with her in her arms. The human world became a faintly drifting memory as my life embedded itself into the demon world. Many demons questioned me, but Seto and Diana defended me with every conflict that came. Aww. However, there was never a day that went by that I didn't wonder, did I make the right choice? It was a very heavy chapter of my life, one that tested the love between me and Diana. My heart seemed to remind me that I had come to the demon world to help Diana, and now it was time for her to honor her end of the deal. She had to teach me everything about the five worlds and about magic. As a queen, that wasn't possible now. To my surprise, I didn't seem to mind. I had been given the experience of a lifetime, and I easily accepted it as a promise fulfilled. The faint memory of my own power slightly tingled through me every time I grew confident, eagerly reminding me that I had strength of my own. I would never let anyone come between me and Diana ever again. The thoughts of it all echoed in my mind as I laid in bed looking up at the ceiling with a wide smile on my face despite the dangers being real. The war was an adventure fun to look back upon in my memories. I took in a breath and let out a sigh, leaning back against the pillow beneath my head and closing my eyes. I was at peace and everything was alright.
Are you okay, dear?
I like that art style of Diana. She looks so pretty. I opened my eyes at the sound of my pet name. Looking up to see Diana smile at me from her side of our bed, I could only giggle and cuddle close to her, feeling her wrap her arms around me. I was just thinking about us.
Were you now? What about us?
With a smile, I nuzzled Diana's chest softly and closed my eyes, listening to her steady and loving heartbeat. How thankful I am to be here with her. Diana stared down at me, gently hugging me to her. I could feel her own joy at this. Yeah, red eyes, very pretty. Situation resonate from her embrace and her kiss over my head.
I am thankful that you're here too.
Aww.
You have done so much for me, and I will cherish you forevermore.
Aww. I couldn't help but look up at her beautiful ruby eyes, feeling her stroke my cheek lovingly.
I vow to make you happy and protect you with my life.
Aww. And I you, Izair. The sound of her real name rolling off my tongue made her giggle and nuzzle closer to me. I loved her real name and I loved holding her against me.
I love you.
Aw, I believed every word. I let her words and themselves into my heart, and I would remember them forever. As Diana hugged me to her warm body, we let out a let out a sigh of contentment. I would love her and continue to hold her close for the rest of my life. Nothing would be able to tear me away from her any longer. And that was my perfectly happily ever after. End. The right choice. There we go. Alright. So, I am actually going to end this stream here, and then the next stream I will be doing either James or Eric's route. I have James, Eric, Matthew, and Damien's route to do. And then I will be streaming the extra episodes, which is this, the Seduce Me, the episode series. And these are all the episodes to play except for Just Another Day and After Ever After. So, I'm going to see who I can raid. Let's see who's live at the same time as me. Ooh, Sharp's live. I'm gonna go read Sharp. So I hope that you have enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!